So janky. This setting is so janky. Janky. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Let's see where. Oh my gosh, I hate this. So sorry. Okay, so the Ren is Druian, and the keywords are humility, cunning, God. Why is this so bad? Why is the focus so awful? What is this? Oh my goodness, I can't get it to focus. I'm so sorry. We'll have to go with blurry. Okay, so Druian allows us to glimpse the beauty of God or goddess in all things. He tells us that small is beautiful, and that self-realization lies not in grandiosity or apparent power, but in humility, gentleness, and subtlety. Let's see. Cunning, if tempered with humorous and good intent, is a way of achieving great things with an economy and effort. And a rational and honest use of the achievement of others. So we pulled the Ren reversed, and this says this could indicate that you need to look at whether your humility and gentleness actually render you invisible to others. Are they your way of defending yourself from life and from others rather than facing life and its difficulties? Perhaps you also need to look at how you use your cunning, your native wit. It is easy for the habit of building on the work of others to become a dishonest exploitation of others' achievements, just as easy it is for cunning to become malign rather than benign. Remember that the story of the Wren and the Eagle can be interpreted in a way that sees the Wren as a cheeky and dishonest upstart who naively believes he can fool others and win status for himself through the ruse. Cleverness in building on the work of others requires wisdom and honest skill if they are to be of value. Alright, let's see. Let me clarify this little guy. Let me clarify him. Oh. Oh, this is loud and clear. Extremely loud and clear. Oh, my. Okay, so the Wren in this deck is a reference to a connection with God, right? And kind of similar to the Christian tradition, when you are indwelling in the presence of Christ and God, within this worldly sphere, you become rather subtle. And it's a mark of, you walk with this world with a mark of humility. So sacred union refers to that. It's a question of your spiritual connection with divinity, God, what have you. Of course, I believe it's Jesus Christ personally. Just divinity in general, higher knowledge, divinity, gnosis, theosis, yada yada. The 12th house of I surrender reversed. And of course, the 12th house in the zodiac ruled by Pisces and Neptune, once again the house of intuition and the unconscious. Here is where we can see the transcendent experiences, hospitals, prisons, secret agencies, hidden enemies, as well as unknown possibilities and one's weaknesses. This house is also associated with long-term confinement, seclusion, and psychic abilities. I have the house of resources, material possessions, and values. Here is where we see our belongings, wealth, and finances, as well as the pillars upon which material, intellectual, and emotional security is developed. I relate the marriage house, ooh boy, Libra and Venus. This is a house of partnerships. Here is where we can see the personal relationships that involve commitment or cooperation of some sort, marriage, spiritual unions as well, and agreements, societies, and business and partnerships. The distinct sense I get from this is this very earthy, watery, unbalanced husband of yours is trying to monopolize all of your energy, your creative expression towards the relationship with him and his hysterical kind of baby needs that are seated in fundamentally in maternal issues from his childhood. And that is at the cost of your higher intuition, which I know you possess, again, from seeing your artwork over the years on Tumblr and your writings. I understand that you are a highly, highly intuitive person, and you're highly spiritual as well. I get the distinct sense that it's as if your husband, in a certain sense, wants to be God. Like, he doesn't want you connected to that divinity, spiritual source, because, well, surrendering to the divine, surrendering one's personal will to the divine, is to kind of just secure that sacred marriage with the divine, which pulls away from the marriage from him, right? It also pulls away from the partnership to make a living and just skirt by on the material 3D realm. So it needs to be communicated to him in some capacity that if he, because I very much see that he's being a stressor for you right now, and if he doesn't cut his nonsense or heal himself, you're just going to relapse. I mean, I'm sorry that's so blunt and straightforward, but I do care about you, and I'm being as straightforward with you as possible. So it needs to be communicated to him that we cannot be our most authentic selves, whether within the role of our higher selves, as it were, who we're meant to be, our creative selves, or within the role as a husband or a wife, if we're cut and rooted out from that sacred divine union, or from those religious or spiritual practices in which we are better trying to meld ourselves to that divinity. It's kind of, it's an atheistic feeling, which is weird because he's Piscean. He loves deep empathy. He loves compassion. He loves sentimental words. I'm sure he loves your writing and the poetics to your writing. He's deeply moved by it. I get this atheistic sense that he's jealous. He'd be the type that's jealous of a woman that has a deep, deep bond, a spiritual bond to a higher form of divinity, whether, I don't know what, Allah, God, Christ, what have you. There's a sense that he's very possessive and jealous of you of that. Now, that may be something, I don't know, this is a sense I get. Now, of course, within AA, fundamentally, AA is about that surrendering to divinity. It's surrendering that all the wheeling, dealing, gaming in life that we use whatever ounce of willpower and worldly power we have to secure these materialistic belongings, wealth, hot people, I don't know what, the hot meat puppets, the hottest meat puppets on the market. That is, and once that narcissistic self is traumatized, that ego is shattered, there is immense escapism. And what cuts through like a sword, as it is written within the Bible, but spirit. Ah, yes, but for that spiritual influence to occur deep within the depths of our souls, there has to be that sacred union. There has to be that surrendering of one's willpower. There has to be that assumption to be the bride of Christ, as it were, within Catholic parlance. Or we simply are not open receptacles within the depths of our soul for that higher inspiration that will ultimately come to redeem and heal us. Which is why fundamentally AA is about that. It's about saying, I surrender to a higher with in this deck? God. I'm that teeny little wren, which is just a common teeny little bird. I surrender this entire minuscule, obscure little being to the sacred, and that is my power. The poor shall inherit the earth, is what they say. And see, we have a little nest full of eggs. The only way within which we can truly have fulfillment within any form of higher creative expression comes from that. Comes from this. Comes from that. Because if we fixate on these two, especially in a worldly sense, in the most worldly of ways, it shall be lost. We get lost in this tizzy of unconscious hysterical nonsense and delusions, poisoning ourselves. You know what image I just thought of is the boiling frog, which it's something that is used in the conspiracy theory field, right? The boiling frog, the conspiracy theory is that there is a that's lasted over generations of elites systematically ushering humanity into its own suicide. And they hit it from all angles, in terms of the military, propaganda, psychological conditioning through culture, media, and our education system to bring us to that point. And the reason the image is the boiling frog is because it is a game that is played over generations. So they incrementally turn up the heat on that boiling frog in the pot. But only so much to where, like, the frog's a bit bothered by it, a bit startled, a bit surprised by the increase of the heat, but it can readily adapt to that heat. And at some point you keep pressing the heat until it's cooked. So the boiling frog. I kind of get that sense within your marriage, and at its root is fundamentally a lack of spirituality. To be frank with you. You are a highly intuitive, intelligent woman, and I can just very plainly, succinctly, straightforwardly say to you that nothing of a higher inspiration can come of our free expression and our free will without that higher aspiration to dwell within divinity, within our hearts, within our minds, within our souls. Straight to the point. So if I get the sense that he's just he needs to heal himself. There's a hysteria connected with his mother. And for all his Piscean kind of woo-woo, emotive, poetic turn of mind, there's an atheistic bent to him, to where it's like, well, if you have a connection to divinity, you're cheating on me. You're in cahoots with the ancient of days with the long beard, and I don't know what. He sees you stroking and running your fingers through that beard. I don't know what. But that's something you may want to research, is like surrender to Providence, or just the only way I can think of where you could maybe persuade this guy to be more of a spiritual bent and to be less possessive is not only some type of therapy, not just marriage counseling, his own therapy, but I also see that you just start, I know he's into deeply empathic words, so just throw, if you're conversing or you see him observing and becoming highly compassionate about the chaos of the world currently unfolding, like, I think of saints in Catholicism, but you know what I mean, just like any major religious, in-depth spiritual insight into the human condition, because that'll strike him in his weakness, which is that Piscean heart, and then maybe you can take him by his little hysterical baby hand and walk him through that spiritual system, because to be quite frank with you, I just see indications that this guy is potentially becoming a stressor that is not good for you. But see, not all hope is not lost. But okay, let's go on to the next one. So the owl. So let's see. He is upright. Yay, an upright card. Yeehaw. Okay, let's see. All right, the owl. Detachment, wisdom, and change. Kalyak Ochi is his name. Kalyak Ochi in the Druid language. Teaches us the wisdom of turning a disadvantage into an advantage. For most birds, the coming of darkness renders it impossible for them to feed, but the owl's exceptional hearing enables it to pick out and swoop on unsuspecting prey during the night. Twilight has been described as owl-like, and going for a quiet walk in the woods at the shimmering time of twilight is an excellent way to develop a sensitivity to the other world and the inner soul of nature. You may feel drawn to a study of esoteric lore or a clairvoyancy. Working with the owl as your ally will help you do this.